Sports Betting Network.
You're watching VSiN's College Football Tailgate Show right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, where you get your winners.
We keep it rolling. Hour 3 of VSiN's College Football Tailgate Show. I'm your host, Tim Murray, live here in Las Vegas. Games about to kick off across the country, including a big one at MetLife Stadium. Notre Dame taking on Navy. Let's head to our progressive guest line and welcome in Grace Remington. She is the co-host of VSiN's Morning Line, which you can hear starting Monday, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern time. Let's sneak this one in, Grace, before the game kicks off. If someone's looking for some last-second action here, Notre Dame takes on Navy. You're looking at an interesting angle here to attack this game in the first quarter.
Yes, want to get this first quarter play in here real quick. I'll take Navy to cover the plus 3.5 in that opening period. Navy is one of the best first quarter teams in the country, ranking just behind Clemson and Ole Miss, scoring 12.2 points in the first quarter. It's also about the way they control the clock. They are a top 5 team in terms of slow pace of play, taking 30 seconds off the play clock per play. Notre Dame is also a slow team. They rank 118th, but when they're on the road, they get even slower, also running at a pace of play of 30 seconds per play, which would make them a bottom 5 team in tempo. So if Navy defers to the second half, if Notre Dame defers to the second half, you could see Navy getting the ball, chewing up half of the play clock in the first quarter. Maybe they score, then by the time Notre Dame finishes their drive, we're looking at a 7-7, or maybe they don't even score until the beginning of the second quarter. So since it's kind of hard to cap this full game, considering Navy's strength of schedule, I'll take them to cover the plus 3.5 in that first quarter.
Yeah, we will see how this game fully plays out right now watching it. So you still have time to throw in that first quarter bet as they're doing the pregame festivities there at MetLife Stadium. Grace Remington joining us here on our progressive guest line. Check out her and Harrison Sanford, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern time, VSiN's Morning Line. All right, this has been a team that has been a juggernaut from an ATS standpoint as an underdog. Last week, really tricky spot. I bet against them with Ball State and ultimately was able to get to the window here. But they're back in their comfort zone, Grace, as an underdog, taking on Texas today. Around an 18-point spread there in Nashville. Vandy taking on Texas. Personally, I actually stayed off of this game, even though I would lean a little bit with the doors. What's your breakdown of Vanderbilt and Texas today?
First of all, I love all the talk about Vandy being an underdog because Diego Pavia actually went on a podcast during Kentucky Week, and he said, every single person on this team knows that we are a 14-point underdog. We're counting every single point in that spread. And then, of course, they pulled the upset again. So there are teams, there are coaches that are aware of the spreads. And sometimes you got to take a little mental note of which ones those are. But what Vandy does so well is it has an elite ability to control the clock because of its style of play. They're also elite on late downs. They rank 6th in the nation in third down conversions, and that's because of Diego Pavia's ability to extend drives, not just with his legs, but with his arm too. Last week, we saw Texas proved it was human. So now the data points we have for Texas are a bunch of blowout wins against overmatched, lesser quality opponents, and then a big loss to one of the best teams in the country in Georgia. And when Texas is at its best, it passes early in order to get Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning in a rhythm, and they score first. What that's allowed for is the defense to play aggressively, rack up turnovers, and then the run game just kind of closes out the game. But if the Longhorns offense starts slow against Vandy, as it did against Georgia and Oklahoma, that's where they're going to get in trouble here because the Doors, given their style of play and ability to chew up the clock, could have a real opportunity to keep that close. The thing I find interesting about Quinn Ewers being benched last week is Steve Sarkisian knows the drama surrounding that quarterback room. And him saying Ewers needed a chance to settle down, normally that's a line you would use for an underclassman, not a 3-year vet who's been in the big moment. So that just kind of makes me wonder, is Ewers playing injured? Is that why he needed a break in that game? So for this game, I'm not going to take a side, but I'm staying off of it as well, like you are, Tim. But if I had to make a play, I think I'd go back to the first quarter here and take the under 10.5 points. Because if Texas defers, Vandy can hold the ball for most of the first quarter. Texas could start slow, as they have in the past. And by the way, I was out of town when Vandy beat Bama. I had major photos. I made sure to stay in Nashville this weekend. So if they pull the upset, I will absolutely be driving downtown and joining that goalpost parade.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if it goes back down Broadway if they pull off yet another upset. Diego Pavia, I mentioned this number going back to New Mexico State a year ago as an underdog. The last 2 years, Diego Pavia 9-2-1 against the spread as a dog, and in games that he finished because he got hurt in the CUSA championship game, 9-1-1 ATS as an underdog. So Diego Pavia, he's loved that dog role, as you alluded to, talking about the Kentucky game. I was on the wrong side of that one. So Diego loves being the dog. There's no doubt about it. Grace Remington joining us here on our VSiN College Football Tailgate Show. This is a game where we've seen a lot of market movement on this Missouri-Alabama game from a side standpoint because of the uncertainty regarding Brady Cook. According to Pete Thamel, Grace, he is going to give it a go with that ankle injury. So it means Brady Cook instead of Drew Pine. They'll be without their lead rusher, though, in Nate Noel. Missouri at Alabama today. The total has been crashing because of that uncertainty regarding Brady Cook. Total sits right now at 51. What are you looking at here with Missouri and Alabama?
Yeah, the movement on that total has been insane. I gave out the under 56.5 on Monday day. So, yeah, that's why you got to bet these games earlier in the week. Make sure you tune into the VSiN Morning Line when those numbers are at their best because, man, we've now passed through all the key numbers of 55, 52, 51. So I don't think a play is available anymore. But you talked about Brady Cook. He was just awesome last week. I mean, you cannot write a movie script the way he did. Coming back from the hospital to lead a comeback, that was incredible. But if he plays this week, how mobile is he? And then if he has to come out, the backup Drew Pine, he's not a mobile quarterback. And even regardless, if they were at full health, the pass game has taken a step back. And with Nate Noel being out, that's not going to help them either. On the other side, Jalen Milroe, I wonder if he's playing hurt as well. I think we've seen the formula for this Bama offense is it's pretty much him hitting these bombs to Ryan Williams, and then you just rely on Jalen Milroe's legs for the rest of the game. So the formula for opposing teams is when you take the deep ball away, that's how you win. And we've seen several opponents over the past season and a half blitz Milroe, trying to get him to force those short passes instead. And I've wondered, too, with how often and how they run Milroe, at what point do all these hits start taking their toll? And I kind of feel like we're starting to see that. But another road test for Missouri here. Obviously, the only road game they had this season, they were crushed at Texas A&M 41-10. And then the UMass one was the weirdest scheduling spot of all time. That doesn't really count. But this Missouri defense ranks high in defensive havoc, going up against an offensive line that doesn't really rate well. And both defenses, though they have had some mental lapses at times, dominate in finishing drives. Missouri allowing just 2.5 points per trip inside the 40, Bama allowing just 3. So I do think it'll be a low-scoring game. Kind of hard to make a play on the total at this point, as 51's a really key number there. But nonetheless, a playoff elimination game. So still, if you don't have skin in the game here, still a really intriguing one to watch.
By the way, Grace, not great news for you as Navy won the toss and deferred to the second half. So Notre Dame will start with the ball, but hopefully for your sake, the Navy defense comes out and gets a stop against the Irish here. That game underway. Grace, before I let you run, a big-time showdown in the SEC tonight in a game that, look, I try to pride myself on figuring out, all right, which way's the market going to move here? Couldn't have been more wrong on the movement of this game. I thought it would move in favor of Texas A&M. It is not. I'm curious your thoughts on Texas A&M LSU tonight down at Kyle Field.
I had this as a 2-point game, so the line movement didn't surprise me. I didn't feel strongly enough to take LSU at +3.5 earlier in the week, but now I have major FOMO, and I ended up sprinkling a little bit on the LSU money line. I think in a close game like this, it comes down to which quarterback plays better. Garrett Nussmeier has become really good under pressure, And one stat that sticks out to me in particular is his ability to avoid sacks. He took just one sack in LSU's first 7 games of the season, but he was pressured 65 times. So that gives him a pressure to sack ratio of 1.5%. Obviously he's getting a huge help from this offensive line that ranks 14th in pass blocking grade, and it's helped him become one of the best deep ball passers in the country. LSU ranks 3rd in passes of 10-plus yards. They rank 14th in passes of 20-plus yards on the season. He has 18 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Going up against a tough front from the Aggies, but their defense is better at defending the run than the pass. So I think LSU's passing offense is the advantage in this game. Texas A&M just doesn't have the passing game to expose this LSU secondary, which has been prone to giving up, shootout type games over the past 2 years, but they've become more havoc minded with their new defensive coordinator, Blake Baker. But Connor Wegman, is kind of been inconsistent. He was great against Missouri, but against Mississippi State was 15 of 25, 217 yards against the bottom 10 pass defense. He's 3 touchdowns to 4 interceptions on the year. LSU coming off a clean game against Arkansas. So I think it comes down to the quarterback play here, and that's where LSU has the edge.
She is Grace Remington. Catch her and Harrison Sanford on Monday morning, 7 to 8 a.m. with the VSiN Morning Line. Grace, best of luck this weekend. We'll hear you on Monday morning.
Yes, thank you, Tim. See you soon.
There she is, Grace Remington with her plays of the week. We're underway in that noon window. We'll get you updated on those contests as well as some notable sound from across college football, getting you ready for another busy Week 9 of college football.
Time. There's nothing more valuable. It's what drives everyone to make the most of every moment. We celebrate living large in the now. In a city where time disappears, we create experiences that electrify the soul and memories that will last forever. We go big, we go all night, and here, everyone is invited. So get loose and get loud.
This is Circa. You'll have the time of your life.
Coming up Monday on Follow the Money, Nick Bogdanovich to look at the openers in college football. We'll recap a great weekend with the NFL and college, and the World Series continues with Game 3. Follow the Money weekdays, 4 to 7 Eastern on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Want to see who at VSiN is on a hot streak? Go to VSiN.com/picks to see all the selections and weekly leaderboard of VSiN hosts, writers, and guests. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber and get every pick sent to your inbox daily. Just head to VSiN.com/pro.
So, Paulie, have you had a chance to read the VSiN Daily yet?
Yeah, came in at 3 a.m. What's Bill doing up that late?
Well, rumor has it, it starts off with a 12-hour meditation session.
Then he just pours himself over film and live TV, really focusing and taking it all in. Bill's in with the biggest insiders, talking trade secrets, strategies, the whole nine, absorbing the info.
And then and only then can the writing process begin.
In Las Vegas, Bill's late night becomes your early morning. Wake up to the very latest betting insights in your inbox with the VSiN Daily. Sign up for free at vsin.com/newsletter.
watching VSiN's College Football Tailgate Show right here on VSiN, the sports betting network where you get your winners.
We are underway with a lot of college football, but the Ponies, they're always ready to go. And Bet Horse Racing's premier year-end event, the Breeders' Cup, on Friday, November 1st and Saturday, November 2nd with First Bet. Sign up at firstbet.com. Use the promo code VSIN200 to claim a 20% rebate for your first 60 days. That's up to $200. Once again, firstbet.com. The promo code is VSIN200, 1ST. All right, quick update from MetLife Stadium. Riley Leonard, a sneak into the end zone. The Irish strike first against Navy. They lead 7-0. Extra point is good. A very workmanlike effort there on that opening drive for the Irish. 4 for 4 for Riley Leonard, 64 yards. The big strike coming to Jaden Greathouse on a 3rd and 6, 42 yards there for the Irish. Navy will have the ball now and see if they can turn things around. Ole Miss right down the field with a touchdown against Oklahoma. So a 7-0 lead for Ole Miss there against Oklahoma. No score yet in the Washington and Indiana game. That way, actually, Indiana into the end zone. I beg your pardon. They lead 6-0. Washington is on the drive there. Scoreless, Nebraska and Ohio State. Ohio State with the ball. Tulane, a touchdown against North Texas as they lead 6-0. Extra point pending in that one. By the way, coming up, Live Bet Saturday, hosted by Dustin Sweetelson and Wes Reynolds. Wes, I'm sure, will be focused on all of the games, right, Dustin? He won't just be focusing on his alma mater, Indiana, as they take on Washington. But as Dustin let me know, the old happiness hedge took a little Washington. Maybe he could thread the needle, but Wes is on Washington there. Noon window, pretty packed, as are. It's a busy day. Come on, it's college football. We got great games all around. And, we talked about this game with Grace Remington, and she's looking a little bit towards Vandy. The first quarter under, I believe, is the way that she was looking at Vanderbilt and Texas. We've seen money come in on Vandy as a dog. And Steve Sarkisian, the head coach of Texas, people wondering, how are you going to rebound after losing last week to Georgia?
As I told the team, I'd much rather get knocked down in the 6th round than get knocked out in the 12th round. And so we got to get up off the mat. We got to get back to work the way we know how to do it, which we will do. We'll fight like crazy, and we'll make this a 12-round fight for the season, and looking forward to the opportunity to go do that to prove what we're capable of.
Yeah, we will see. Texas, certainly a team that very much still in the driver's seat to make the college football playoff. I'll just say this. And this isn't a knock on Texas, but what's their best win? We talked about it last week. Is it Michigan? So you look at Texas, there's not a lot of meat on the bone necessarily, and I'd be very interested to see where they ultimately land in those opening rankings. But take care of business today. You could argue today could be their best win on the road at Vanderbilt. I mentioned the numbers regarding Diego Pavia. I can't stop saying them, just how good he has been as an underdog this year, or not even only this year, going back to last year as well. Missouri is in a tough spot this weekend, taking on Alabama, 3:30 Eastern kickoff down at Bryant-Denny Stadium, because their starting quarterback, Brady Cook, dealing with an ankle injury. And if you want a dude that is tough, man, went to the hospital last week, came back, helped Missouri get a win over Auburn, 21-17, covered based off of the closing number there in that one. And here in this spot, you've got a game against Alabama where Alabama's coming off a loss. The market got as high as 17.5. Now we are anticipating Brady Cook to play. But for Eli Drinkowitz, looking at this offense for Missouri, he is knowing that Alabama's got some dudes there on that defensive side of the ball.
Like pass coverage? Yeah, we're going to need blankets. We're going to have to cover them. We have to do our jobs. I think Coach Patoon obviously has a pretty good feel of mixing up coverages, and I thought we did a really good job of that on Saturday. But we cannot let the deep ball beat us, and that's been an issue for us. We've given up way too many deep balls, deep shots. Obviously, the touchdown that Auburn had in the game, Boston College, Vanderbilt, all had deep throws. So, we're going to have to keep the ball in front of us. And again, goes back to this play philosophy. We got to knock it down and get back up and play this play, and we can't give up explosives for touchdowns.
Poor hosting by me. I mentioned that he was curious about the Alabama defense and more about their defense facing off against this Alabama offense. Jalen Milroe. Curious about Jalen Milroe from a Heisman standpoint, where he stands right now, if he's got an opportunity to get back into the race. And I mentioned earlier in the show that I think, when you look at Ashton Jeanty, good performance last night, but was it good enough? I think it hurt him from the standpoint of winning the Heisman Trophy. It's not fair, but out of the G5, you've got to be flawless. And that certainly wasn't the case last night. Ashton Jeanty no longer the betting favorite, as you see right there at DraftKings, down to plus 280. Jalen Milroe, the loss last week, I think really set him back. And now Travis Hunter dealing with an injury. Kind of feels like a three-horse race right now with Cam Ward, Ashton Jeanty, and Dillon Gabriel. Speaking of Dillon Gabriel, his head coach is Dan Lanning. And boy, the Illinois squad this year has been a very surprising bunch, right? And Dan Lanning knows at home today at Autzen Stadium that Luke Altmaier, the quarterback for Illinois, has had a heck of a year. What's led to so much success for Luke Altmaier?
Yeah, I just think he's a guy that causes a lot of issues with his athleticism and his ability. He's been able to extend plays. He's got, great feet so he can run. I think that's always a challenge defensively when you're defending a guy that can also run and throw the ball extremely well. But he's been a good decision maker. You don't get to this point in the season and only have one interception and be a bad decision maker. So he gives his guys an opportunity to go make plays on the ball. I think they do a really good job calling a game for him and allowing him to play within the system. And then he does a great job with his feet when those opportunities are taken away.
Kind of like Oregon here in this spot. Not something I've bet, but I do think Illinois, I feel like Oregon's hitting their peak, and I feel like maybe a little regression is coming for the Illini. So I do like Oregon a little bit. Like if you're in a pick 'em pool and you're laying 21 or something like that, maybe Oregon is a spot here. And at this point, maybe I just need to start, tipping my cap to Illinois. You think about the performance they had at Penn State where they were able to cover against the Nittany Lions in a 21-7 victory for Penn State. Slowed things down, but I thought Penn State really dominated that game and in every which way. A game that I have bet, the Sunflower Showdown, Kansas and Kansas State. Kansas 2-5. I like them here in this spot, catching the double digits. Chris Kleiman knows that 2-5 record not really indicative of who this Kansas team is.
Well, I think it's because it's KU State. I mean, I know that we didn't have as much life as I wanted us to have, or energy, when we got off the bus at West Virginia. We found a way. I don't think that's going to be the case this week, just because of the respect that both programs have for one another. There's almost all the same players that were up 11 on us in the fourth quarter at their place last year. There's plus you had the quarterback that they didn't have last year, and so they have obviously our full attention of our players and coaches, because it's a bunch of veteran guys on both sides of the ball that. They 2-5 is not indicative. I mean, they're ahead in all 5 of those losses and have a chance to win all 5 of those games.
Do a little air fist pump here. Navy turnover on their first drive. Let's go. First turnover for Navy since August 31st. A pitch, they drop it. Adon Schuler for Notre Dame picks it up, and the Irish now inside the 10-yard line. Notre Dame, if you want to try to put Navy away, they're going to keep on coming, but they got to punch this one into the end zone, do the Irish here, as they will now have a 2nd and goal from the 3-yard line. So, look, facing Navy, Notre Dame, you can't make mistakes, but Navy, you can ill afford mistakes, and they had not turned the ball over since August 31st. They do it right there on their opening drive, and Notre Dame a chance to punch it into the end zone here to go up 14-0 against the Navy midshipmen. And we heard from Chuck Esposito earlier in the show that this was a spot where the public was really intrigued by the dog here. 69.2% of the bets. The Irish will now be facing a 3rd and goal from inside the 1-yard line after the turnover. So Notre Dame trying to run a little hurry up here and get into the end zone to make it a quick 14-0 lead. And I believe Riley Leonard just scored. There was a flag thrown, so we'll see what we get on the call there. I don't see if Notre Dame was set or if Navy was offsides, but we do have a penalty that was thrown. The Irish, as of now, currently in the end zone. We'll get you updates as well as some player props. We'll run through some player props here on the other side of the break. It is the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show, live from Las Vegas on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Sports betting game with VSiN's exclusive betting splits. Stay ahead with real-time market trends and track bet percentages on any matchup. Then uncover the edge by comparing them to the amount of bets placed to find out where the sharp money is headed. Upgrade to VSiN Pro to access betting splits, live odds, line moves, power ratings, and in-depth game analysis. Go to VSiN.com/pro to join VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is VSiN, the sports betting network.
You're watching VSiN's College Football Tailgate Show right here on VSiN, the sports betting network, where you get your winners.
We keep it rolling here. It is the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show. I'm your host, Tim Murray, live here in Las Vegas. We flip from previewing games to giving you in-game updates. The Irish into the end zone, a touchdown pass from Riley Leonard. It is now 14-0 Notre Dame over Navy. So the Irish coming out with the plan, and they get a turnover, and they quickly turn it into a score. Ole Miss up 7-0, minus 21.5 in-game. Georgia Tech up 3-0. They're plus 4.5 in-game. Indiana minus 8.5 in-game. They lead 7-0. Tulane up 7-3 over North Texas, and UVA has a early 3-0 lead over North Carolina in-game in that one, 5.5. No score yet in Nebraska, Ohio State. But as we all know, plenty of games to hit on still to come today. And to help us break down games from a player prop standpoint, Eric Froton, NBC Sports, joins us here, a good friend of our friend Thor Nystrom. You can follow him on Twitter at CF Froton, lead college football analyst for NBC Sports. Eric, appreciate you jumping in. I know you just got off the air with our guy Thor, so let's jump into some player props. And to be honest, it feels like a little bit of an untapped market in college football. Last night, I went to UNLV Boise State and played under Ashton Genty, because why wouldn't I? And it did come home. Maybe I should retire on that one, because playing under his props are not all that fun. But let's get to a couple games still to come. And Oregon-Illinois is an interesting one from a betting market, right? You're seeing the number out to like 22 public support, at least from just your casual bettors on Illinois. When you look at this game from a prop standpoint, Eric, what jumps out to you with Oregon-Illinois?
Sure. Well, there's Evan Stewart, wide receiver, Oregon. He transferred over, former five-star from Texas A&M. And with Stewart, he started slow this year. You know, they didn't really break him out over the course of the non-conference slate. But if you look at the past few games, he has emerged, and he's really developed into that Troy Franklin deep threat to complement Tez Johnson that we sort of saw last year. And with that happening, he's only listed at 57.5 receiving yards, which is, you know, frankly, pretty low considering what we've seen him do. And in a competitive game against a top 25 opponent like Illinois, you're going to have to see Dillon Gabriel throwing. It's not going to be just a case where you can just break out Jordan James and run all over them. I think that makes it for a great spot for him to go over this 57.5-yard mark.
All right, so we're going to go over there on that one. We were talking a little bit off the air about Iowa and Cade McNamara, and you said, you know, it's always fun to look at some Cade McNamara props. Coming up later this afternoon, Iowa laying 15 against the Purple Cats of Northwestern. So from a prop standpoint, what stands out from Cade McNamara and the Hawkeyes today?
Well, he's listed on the parlay books at 147.5 passing yards, and that's just way more than we've seen him. Last week, 130. That seems to be pretty much his baseline here. But against Northwestern, I guess they're expecting Iowa to kind of ramp it up a little bit. Had a nice showing last week, obviously, against Michigan State. And I assume they're just thinking because Northwestern hasn't been particularly prolific scoring, and they put up 5 points last game, that there will be, you know, not quite the script that they're looking for. I don't agree. I think this is going to be more Caleb Johnson, 25 to 30 carries. They're going to ride him hard, put him away wet. And that doesn't really bode well for Cade McNamara's over, because I do think Iowa probably should win this game. They're not going to be in a position to throw, so they're not going to throw. I like that under 147.5.
Eric Froton from NBC Sports joining us here in studio on the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show. Texas and Vanderbilt. I know a lot of folks are intrigued by Vandy here in that dog role. 4-0 ATS are the Commodores against the spread. 3-1 straight up in those games. So you've got Texas off of a loss. I was just talking to our colleague Grace Remington. I'm staying off of this game, even though my heart is telling me to take the points with Vandy. From a prop standpoint, Texas and Vandy, what jumps out to you, Eric, about this one?
Yeah, well, with Texas, right?
Yep.
We saw the QB carousel that they had last week against Georgia, or 2 weeks ago. Arch Manning gets some snaps. You know, in comes Ewers for the second half. He finishes it out. But we saw a lot of unsettled situation there. With Quinn Ewers, opens up at 257.5 this week, ticks down at 249.5, maybe 242 in some spots. I just think it's a case where against Vandy, they play slow. You're not seeing them throw a lot, only about 25 pass attempts a game for Diego Pavia, their quarterback. With that sort of a script, with Clark Lee having shown against Alabama that they can go and do some really advanced scouting and tailor their game script to what works for them and what doesn't work for their opponent, I think we may not see Quinn Ewers take every single snap. And if we don't, if Arch gets 2 drives, I feel like this is dead in the water. You're going to see a lot of running from Trey Wisner, their starting running back, and I think that you're going to see an underscript here for Quinn Ewers.
Well, did you have over 1.5 turnovers for Navy? Because I don't think many people anticipated that. They had not turned the ball over in the last 5 games. They just fumbled again. The Irish pounce on the fumble. Notre Dame has the ball up 14-0 around midfield. Eric Froton joining us here on the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show. Alabama coming off the loss, and this is such a tricky game to handicap because of the uncertainty regarding Brady Cook and his health. Is he going to give it a go? Is he not? Is it going to be Drew Pine? Pete Thamel reported earlier today, Eric, that it would be Brady Cook giving it a go. What does that mean? TBD. But Alabama, we know their guy's Jalen Milroe. What do we expect from Jalen Milroe this afternoon in Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, well, with Alabama and with Milroe, they don't want to throw unless they have to throw. And if you look at what they did against Georgia, 33 pass attempts, obviously had as good a first half as you could possibly ask for. And then last week against Tennessee, they lose. They're down, they lose 24-17. He throws 45 pass attempts. Those are extreme outliers to what we've seen the rest of the season. He hasn't cleared 26 in any of the other 5 games. And with Alabama in pretty good shape here, should be in control of this game in theory, I just think you're not going to have to put the ball into harm's way, and they're going to want to keep this on the ground with the 3-headed running back situation. You got Jam Miller, you got Justice Haynes, and of course Miller keeping the ball himself. I think you see the ball on the ground, and I think you see an under 30.5 pass attempts for Jalen Milroe.
Eric Froton, NBC Sports, joining us here in studio. Eric, you were at the game last night. Boise State beating UNLV, getting the cover. I said it earlier today. I'm not a hot take guy, but I really feel like in order for Ashton Jeanty to win the Heisman, fair or not, he's got to break Barry Sanders' record. He's got to go nuclear. And last night, he was fine. 3.9 yards per carry, ran for over 100 yards, but you need superhuman efforts for him. So when you look at the Heisman market, how much did last night, despite the win, in your opinion, hurt Ashton Jeanty's candidacy?
It dinged him a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think you look at the overarching points, which is 36 touches, 33 carries, 3 receptions.
I thought UNLV, as you were there,
they did a great job.
They sold out, and I thought they did a really good job. And I thought Maddox Madsen, he deserves a ton of credit. I thought he played very, very well last night.
Yeah, absolutely. And the running, too.
Yeah.
I mean,
first drive of the game, just whoop, right out there, yeah.
Yep, and then he has that other run where he does a keeper or a scramble, goes, and he just busts his way through the line, gives a flex afterwards. That's what we like to see. But with Jeanty, man, speaking of, you could see how tired he was.
Oh, yeah.
How sore he was, how much pain he was in. Like, you're seeing him after some of those carries, and he's like hitting the ground, and he's getting frustrated with himself. But he goes, and he's going right back out there, and he takes the next carry. It was a workmanlike performance. It wasn't the 200-yard, 3-touchdown explosion that you want to see for a Heisman candidacy, but I don't think it detracts from the fact that I think Ashton Jeanty is the best Group of 5 running back since Marshall Faulk.
Yeah, he's been absolutely unbelievable, and that wasn't. My point this morning wasn't trying to diminish what he's done. It's just it's an uneven playing field that he is going against here in that spot. All right, final 2 minutes with you, Eric. Texas A&M and LSU tonight. Seen the market come in a little bit here on LSU. It was high as 3 earlier this week. I bet Texas A&M. I joked. I try to be prideful of trying to read the market. I read this market wrong. I laid money line earlier this week with Texas A&M. I could have got a better number today. I lean Texas A&M. I'm not going to jump in on LSU. I'm curious your thoughts on what to expect tonight down at Kyle Field.
Well, with LSU, they want to be able to dictate the pace, and they like to throw as much as they can. But what I'm on personally is Caden Durham, their running back. He's listed at 11.5 rushing attempts. Last game, he got 21. He's a true freshman, right? Josh Williams, just sort of the nominal old codger who's out there, churning out a few carries. But as the season went on, he became increasingly more marginalized. Thought it might be Caleb Johnson, 245-pound sophomore. He just doesn't have the explosiveness. Gave Caden Durham a shot, and you've seen him over the past 2 games just be absolutely explosive, has taken hold of that room with 21 carries last game. 12 carries the game before. You're going to put him at 11.5 against Texas A&M, where they're not going to want to be putting the ball into danger against a very, very good Texas A&M defense. I think you see him go over his 57.5 rush yards mark, Caden Durham.
If you want prop action for college football, follow him on Twitter at CF Froton. Eric Froton, lead college football analyst for NBC Sports. Appreciate you jumping in, man.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
We'll get you updated on all the games going on in the noon window, as well as some best bets to close out the show. This is the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show.
In the heart of downtown Las Vegas, a sports oasis awaits. Stadium Swim, the ultimate outdoor amphitheater, built for the ultimate sports fan. With a colossal screen that brings the game closer than ever. Reserve a daybed, private cabana, or lounge in the center of it all. 6 pools to dive into as the game heats up. And the best part, there's never an off-season. Open 365 days a year. Stadium Swim, it's always spectator season.
Sean Green and Ryan Kramer bring an energetic approach to sports betting to keep you entertained while sweating your bets on the Sports Gambling Podcast Live at VSiN.
There is something to the idea of the smart teams might be zagging. You see all the best offenses in the National Football League have a fullback.
If you like defense, if you like football, how can you not be okay with 2 high safeties?
Join Sean and Ryan every Friday night at 11 p.m. Eastern on the Sports Gambling Podcast Live at VSiN, right here on the Sports Betting Network.
watching VSiN's College Football Tailgate Show right here on VSiN, the sports betting network where you get your winners.
Putting a bow on the show, it is the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show. And folks, it is an amazing time of year to be a sports fan and a sports bettor with all four major sports in action. That means it's the Sports Equinox. Celebrate this great time with our new Sports Equinox special. You get full VSiN Pro access to everything we do through May 1st. That includes our daily best bets, betting splits with trends and analysis to make you a sharper bettor, plus our exclusive betting content for the World Series, college football, rest of the NFL season, March Madness, NBA and NHL regular seasons, and the NFL Draft. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. VSiN.com/subscribe to sign up. Once again, VSIN.com/subscribe. End of the first quarter at MetLife Stadium. Notre Dame leads 14-0, but a small victory for Navy as after another turnover, Notre Dame does not lead to points. Notre Dame misses a short field goal. Worth noting, Notre Dame once again dealing with a injured kicker. Mitch Jeter out today again for the Irish, dealing with, I believe, a hamstring injury. So their backup kicker missed a short field goal. So the Irish do lead 14-0, but Navy getting a stop and no points there for Notre Dame. So a good spot there for Navy, at least to avoid being down 17-0. No score yet in in Ohio State, as that is scoreless between Nebraska and Ohio State. I mentioned Bloomington. Indiana did score via, I believe, a scoop and score, or was it a pick six? I know it was a turnover that the defense was able to score there. Indiana leads that game 7-0 early in the second quarter. Thank you. Dustin just got in my ear. It was a pick six for Indiana. Ole Miss and Oklahoma tied at 7. That one late in the first quarter. Virginia Tech up 7-3 on Georgia Tech. UNC has a 7-3 lead. Mentioned that the betting market was taking UNC here, and the Tar Heels do have an early lead over Virginia in that one. Charlotte and Memphis, that one knotted up at 7 early second quarter. And then how about this score? The Tulane Green Wave that entered today 8-1 to make the college football playoff. 21-3. They have jumped on North Texas here. North Texas does have a explosive offense, could potentially come back, so we will see. But, boy, great start for Tulane there in the first quarter, up 21-3. It looks like just about to kick off there in Stark Vegas. A best bet for me. I took 7 with Mississippi State. That game, I believe, closed 7.5, so I didn't get the best of the number there. Mississippi State and Arkansas about to kick off there, and actually closed at 8, so I got the worst of the number in that one. All right, just kind of running through things and tying things up. Once again, Live Bet Saturday has got you covered for the next 6 hours of content here on VSiN, in-game betting, and I'm sure Wes Reynolds has got his fair share of in-game angles. I know Dustin's got a bunch of bets as well, so make sure to stick around for those fellas coming up top of the hour. Just looking through the rest of the board, a best bet for me coming up at 3:30. Stormy Bonazzoni, our colleague, she will be on the sidelines for this one. I really like UCF today, and we've seen the betting market go nuts on this game. Right now, BYU, as at a number of shops, is a 3-point underdog. They opened as a 2-point favorite, so about a 5-point swing at some shops in this game. So starting to get a little pricey, but I still like the money line here on UCF. I know you're paying a little extra juice than what we had to do earlier this week, but I love this spot for UCF. I know they're coming off of a hard-fought loss, but I think BYU, I don't want to call it luck. Their fortune may be running out here in a weird spot. You got to go on the road, down to the bounce house there after last Friday night's win over the Cougars. By the way, Indiana, a explosive touchdown there. Omar Cooper into the end zone, and the Hoosier train continues to roll on through. They lead 13-0, extra point pending there in the second quarter. So Indiana continuing to roll, and we'll see if that is a number that continues to come on home there for Indiana. Another game coming up at 3:30, Illinois at Oregon. Looking at the betting market here, Oregon is actually, from the public, being bet against a little bit here. 22-point favorites, though, are the Ducks in this spot. And I like Oregon here. I don't like to lay chalk all that often, but I would look more towards the favorite in this spot. Obviously, at 22, you're looking at a possible backdoor situation. And remember this, I thought Illinois was thoroughly outplayed when they went went to Happy Valley, but they still covered that number, losing 21-7. So I think Oregon is finally rolling here. I do like Oregon, but I'm not crazy about laying 22 in this spot. Maybe you wait a little bit in game and you potentially get below that key of 21 in that particular spot. By the way, just keeping a close eye on what's happening there in MetLife Stadium. And, it's just funny to see this Navy team throw as much as they do, and looks like the Irish might be called for a pass interference on that one. So Navy with the ball, an opportunity to cut into this deficit, as we saw Notre Dame miss a field goal, so did not convert a turnover into points there on the second or third drive, I should say, for the Irish, and it was pass interference indeed on Notre Dame. So another penalty for Notre Dame, and that'll give Navy with some decent field position there. Missouri and Alabama in this spot, 3:30 Eastern. Missouri catching 15 in this spot. This was the number one play in the Friday Circa football contest there. You can get all those picks on VSiN.com. I think people were grabbing a good number on the likelihood that you would potentially see Brady Cook play in this game. So Alabama right now down to 15. Brady Cook, according to Pete Thamel, is going to try to give it a go in this particular spot here for Missouri. So it is a 15-point spread in that one. Once again, Alabama at home coming off of a loss. We just heard from Eric Froton on a player prop that he likes on Iowa. He thinks it's going to be more of a Caleb Johnson type of contest. Minnesota, Maryland. This is a bet that I have in pocket, a money line parlay. Didn't want to lay the number. Really like the situational spot for Minnesota. Coming off a bye. Maryland coming off the win over USC. And you might say to yourself, well, it's USC. They're 4-4 this year after the win last night over Rutgers. But they stormed the field. That was a big comeback. And I think this is a tricky spot for the Terps to come on back here in this one. As once again, we're watching now. And if you had any props on Blake Horvath scoring a touchdown, he just goes into the end zone. So just like that, Navy not going to go away. 47-yard touchdown run for the Navy quarterback. And Notre Dame, you're going to have to keep scoring against this midshipman team. And remember, Notre Dame with a backup quarterback. So this is a game that closed at 14, and Navy gets into the end zone. So after an early deficit, couple of turnovers, Navy on the board, and it is now 14-6, extra point pending there for the midshipmen. Couple games in the night windows that are certainly of interest. We've got Texas and Vanderbilt. We've talked about a bunch here on this program. Vanderbilt thriving this year in that underdog role. Another game that is of interest that we haven't talked about a ton today is Penn State, Wisconsin. Mentioned this in that sandwich spot. It's not really your typical sandwich spot. I think it's more of a look-ahead spot here for Penn State. You've got Ohio State waiting there in the wings, and I think Penn State, be careful here. Going on the road to Camp Randall, 6.5-point favorites are the Nittany Lions. I like Wisconsin a little bit here in this spot, catching 6.5. A best bet that I do have, LSU against Texas A&M. I mentioned it already. Didn't get the best of the number here. Laid a money line price on Texas A&M. I just give a slight edge to Texas A&M here in this spot, and I understand, can you trust Connor Wegman? Who's the quarterback that you can trust? Garrett Nussmeier continues to play well. Blake Baker, the defensive coordinator for LSU, has done a phenomenal job, especially when you think about him losing Harold Perkins this year to a season-ending injury. Big note here, Texas A&M will be without their starting left guard, which certainly could be an issue there, but I do lean a little bit towards Texas A&M. That is a bet I do have in pocket. Another bet that I have in that night window is Kansas in the Sunflower Showdown. Wes Reynolds was on the VSiN College Football Betting podcast earlier this week. He took 10, and I joined him on that. The more and more I dug into this, this is a Kansas team that I feel like has been a bit unfortunate this year from the standpoint of turnover luck, and I think Lance Leipold catching 10 on the road at Kansas State. I think you're going to get a very good effort from Kansas tonight, and I think they can keep this one close. Late night, Colorado and Cincinnati. I do wonder, and Colorado not giving enough love to this Colorado team, but I do wonder, have we gone too far with this number? There's a 7 out there right now. I would definitely grab a 7 on Cincinnati here in this spot. South Point has a 7. I think a 7 for Cincinnati is certainly worth a look. And then late night, the night would not be complete without an opportunity to go out to the island. Midnight Eastern, Hawaii is taking on Nevada in this one. Worth the noting here, Brendan Lewis, the starting quarterback for Nevada, is out in this one. So no Brendan Lewis for Nevada, and Hawaii has moved now to a favorite here as at -2. So that's going to do it for me here on the program. Thanks to everyone who joined the show. Eric Froton, Grace Remington, Chuck Esposito, Mike Sanford, Kenny White. Thanks to Dustin. Thanks to Ryan, everyone behind the scenes, Damon as well. I am Tim Murray. This has been the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show. Coming up next, Dustin Sweetelson and Wes Reynolds have you covered with Live Bet Saturday here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
It's that magical time of year, the sports equinox, when all 4 major sports are in action. VSiN is celebrating